Okay, I'm Larry Sanders. I'm here because there's a whole lot of people you see here, Bernie supporters, American citizens, and shortly we will be marching to a polling booth and they will cast their votes. And it's part of the Democrats abroad. So I would like to tell anybody who is watching this that if you're an American citizen or you know somebody who is, tell them that they can go to democratsabroad.org and they will be able to vote online. These people will be voting at a polling booth, but you can also vote online.
I would say that anybody can vote for Warren. Anybody should vote for Warren. She cares about everyone. That's why it's a reciprocal situation in my eyes.
You look past 50 years, Bernie Sanders has been saying the same things for the past 50 years. He's been fighting for racial justice, social justice, economic justice, political justice. That's important to me.
What are the values that brings you towards voting for Bernie?
A transformation of the neoliberal economy.
I need a fucking dictionary. All of these books, and we haven't got one fucking dictionary.
The values I hope that will lead people to vote for Bernard are a concern for the mass of people rather than the very rich, a concern for that we don't go to war all the time, and a concern that we actually do something for the planet.
Would you say that Bernie Sanders is very much against arbitrary discrimination?
Definitely. He's fought against it his whole career. You could find pictures of him in the 60s and 70s being arrested by police for fighting for human rights and human equality and against arbitrary discrimination.
And there's a kind of an idea that I'm floating around. It's kind of quite progressive and maybe a bit out there. But what do you think about the idea of equality, including non-humans, including animals?
I think that's very important, making sure that animals are protected, especially animal rights, and basically stopping the consumption of animal products is especially a very important issue in solving climate change.
Right.
Like, eventually, I'm not a vegan right now, but I think that eventually humanity is, unless even out of not maybe morality, but out of human necessity for our environment, are going to have to move towards something else.
A lot of people have talked about equality today. Is that something that's really important to you? Equality of races, of genders, different sexual orientations? You're taking a stand against arbitrary discrimination.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is the idea that in a democratic society, everybody should have a chance to a decent life.
And when we say equality, do we mean treated equally, or would we say equal consideration?
Well, I think it means that you set up your system so that everybody gets a good life.
Yeah. And when we look at discrimination against race or gender, we say, well, I guess what's in common with that is that it's arbitrary discrimination. There's no meaningful difference between these people. We all share the capacities to suffer, the will to live, etc.
Yes. Well, and even where there are legitimate ones, if some people have fewer capacities than others, why not? Why shouldn't they have a decent life?
Absolutely.
So, but you're right. A large part of it is the absolute stupid discrimination.
What do you think about the idea of equality, including non-humans, including animals?
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, she's got the Blue New Deal, she's got the Green New Deal. I think that the environment is a big concern for Elizabeth, so I think that she's absolutely interested in keeping equality and, the health up there,
And do you guys have any thoughts about the current food system? Like the way we use animals for food, for meat, for dairy, for eggs, all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's not good, and it's worse in the United States.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the agro business is sucking all the nutrition out of our food and not treating animals very well, so you can understand the move toward veganism.
Do you think that the logic for discriminating against someone because of their race or their sex is the same logic that we use when we discriminate against animals for their species?
I think so, yes. We humans tend to think that we are technically we are more intelligent than the animal life on this planet.
Yes.
But that shouldn't mean that we're better than them. I mean, we don't run around killing and eating people because we're smarter than they are.
Exactly. No, I think that's very well put. We can acknowledge differences, but those differences aren't necessarily a reason to harm them.
We need to protect the rights of, at the very least, sentient life.
Yeah.
I think the Bernie movement is about extending full rights literally to everyone. Not to the people, not just to some people who have always had those rights, but literally to everyone.
And
that's important.
What characteristics do people possess that means they should have those rights?
They're human, full stop.
Well, what characteristics does a human possess that means that's important?
They feel, they cry, they laugh. They're human.
They suffer, they have a will to live, they like value their life. What do you think about the idea of extending equal consideration to include non-humans, animals?
I mean, I think it's interesting.
And this is probably going to sound like quite a progressive idea, but what about the idea of equal consideration for animals, non-humans?
I don't think I'm not sure how much Bernard has paid attention to that,
Right.
but I myself have some idea, and I think that certainly part of his farming policies would be better for a lot of farm animals. But beyond that, I can't say much.
And do you mean in the sense of better welfare? Is that
Both in terms of better welfare and many fewer being raised to be eaten.
Do you think there's a humane way to kill an animal?
I'm just curious how this relates to the presidential primary, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure. Because we're talking about equality, and you guys are saying one of the reasons you're voting this way is because you believe in equal consideration and no arbitrary discrimination against race, gender, sex. So what I'm saying is that what do you think about species? Is that arbitrary discrimination?
I don't think that, but I'm just curious, like, is it agrarian policy that you're interested in? Because Elizabeth Warren absolutely has a plan for agrarian policy and rooting out big pharma, for instance, which has a huge influence in the agricultural industry in the States. So I absolutely think that if that's an interest area of yours, then you can find those resources on her website. She has all the plans. So
Yeah. I think there's one issue that I have with Warren is that she's never talked about the issue of exploiting and using animals for food at all. And I guess my question for you guys is, I mean, do you think that there is a good way to do this, or do you think there's something inherently wrong with taking away an animal's life for an unnecessary reason?
A lifelong vegetarian, so I'm not really.
Although it is definitely more expensive to live a vegan vegetarian lifestyle than it is to say, eat meat and dairy products. So that is, something that, a little prohibitive against that. Yeah.
I think it kind of depends on what you want. So let's say if you want all of the vegan alternatives, like the vegan fast food, I think it would be a bit more expensive, especially in London.
Definitely coming on.
But if we think about the cheapest food on the supermarket, the rice, beans, lentils, some vegetables, this is what the poorest people on the planet eat.
Fair enough.
Do you think that it could be done in an affordable way?
It could be, yes.
Yeah. I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot, and you might not have talked about this topic as in depth as I have. But do you think that there's any moral justification for killing an animal?
No, not really. A lot of, the ideas we have about, animals being completely meant for human use, it comes from a lot of very old, philosophical and religious ideas.
Yeah.
It definitely deserves evaluating in our modern society.
I mean, putting my cards on the table, I'm really concerned about harming animals, but that has to go hand in hand with stopping harming people. So if those things are together, if the stopping of the suffering of human beings and animals happens at the same time, all for it. But I'm not going to commit myself to a movement about not harming animals that then is really hostile to human beings.
Yeah. I don't think the animal rights movement is hostile
No,
to
I don't
humans.
think so either.
Yeah.
I think there are sometimes people let themselves off the hook,
Sure.
and I want to make sure that that's not the case. Yeah.
Do you think there's a humane way to kill an animal?
I'm not going to get into it because I don't know enough. But I'm glad that you're paying attention to it because it obviously is big.
Yeah. Do you think?
I'm gonna
Okay, no. So thank you for talking to me. I appreciate the conversation.
Okay.
Cheers.
But I am, curious how this relates.
I used to be a vegetarian, and then it was until I found out about the egg industry, the way they grind animals up while they're fully conscious. All the animals in the dairy and egg industry also get sent to the slaughterhouse when their egg production slows or the dairy production slows. I don't know if you know much about the dairy industry, but it's the same in the US as the UK in the way that they take the babies away from the mothers repeatedly and artificially inseminate her. I mean, do you feel like these processes are contradicting your beliefs and what you guys stand for?
I think that reflects less on Warren and more on my personal feelings about it, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm curious, are there other candidates in the primary who have
Stances
on animal, humane?
Maybe animal welfare, but not like the use and exploitation of animals, right?
So is that something that you are campaigning on?
So I go to different protests to talk about this issue because I think it links in with a lot of other issues, especially if someone's at a protest for equality. And I know it probably seems kind of out there, but I think that
It's your passion. You should stand up for that.
yeah. And I think that discriminating against someone for their sex or their race is the same logic we use when we discriminate against animals for their species. Do you think that being vegan would be more in line with your own morals? Tough question, I know.
I mean, I'm not. I think like
You know, it depends on the production, isn't it? If it's sustainable practices, then
we could hypothetically torture animals sustainably, and we could kill each other sustainably. So I understand that we can find more like local products, whatever. But I mean about the actual individual's well-being, whether it's sustainable. Like forget about the environment for a minute. Are we doing something wrong when we take an animal's life?
I mean, yeah, like I said, it has nothing to do with Elizabeth Warren.
If I was to say to you that I really enjoyed the way animals tasted and it gave me pleasure, would that be a good enough justification for killing the animal?
Morally, no.
Do you think that when you buy the products, are you contradicting your own morals when you do that by supporting the industry that you disagree with?
In a way, yes.
And do you think that being vegan would be more in line with who you are as a person?
Probably, yes. It's probably something that I should do.
Do you think there's a humane way to kill an animal?
I don't want to pause it on this one.
Okay.
Right. Well, as a person who still eats meat, and also as a person who knows indigenous people who like are really committed to eating meat in ethical ways, I'm not going to do a universal on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I'm not either.
So I guess I can see what you're saying, and I think, and it's a situation when someone needs to survive. We can justify lots of things that we wouldn't justify when we don't need to survive. Do you think that we need to consume animal products to survive or be healthy today in the West?
Technically, no, but in reality, yes.
Concern of yours, then I think what you should do is raise the candidates. I think that it's really important. Somebody like Elizabeth Warren, she listens to people. She takes the time. She really cares about everyone. It doesn't matter whether you are a person that supports her or not. She sees you as a constituent. She stands up for you. So that's why, you know, like I think that you can bring that up with the people that are standing for election here, and I believe that Elizabeth Warren does that.
I think you raise good points. So the only thing I'd say is that while the majority of people on the planet or in the UK and the West want to buy the animal products, the politicians are never going to come out and say, I want to stop using animals.
You gotta vote the right politicians.
There's no I mean, it's not going to happen while people pay for it. So that's why I'm trying to talk to people, because if it.
I don't believe that. I have to say, I believe somebody like Elizabeth Warren. She listens to people. She stands up for people.
But what I'm saying is the majority of people want to keep using animals. So until that change, until public perception changes, and then public learn about the fact that we're grinding up male chickens, putting animals in gas chambers, all of this stuff, then that'll never change. What would be stopping you from being vegan?
Honestly, what you said before, I enjoy the taste.
Absolutely.
It's morally wrong, but
Yeah.
I guess I do it still anyway.
I think I appreciate the honesty. I think that's kind of like, when it boils down to it, we can't find. I think our parents gave us these products, and we never maybe consciously made a decision to begin eating them, and then
I don't even know how to. Generally, my diet for my entire life has included meat, so for me to completely replace it, it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah. I mean, behavior change is complicated.
It's one of the complicated issues of our time.
Yeah.
200-300 years ago, it was slavery. Before, after that, it was gender rights, LGBT rights. We justify these things when in reality we should be able to realize what the right decision is.
And when we're looking back in hindsight, it can seem so obvious, right?
Exactly. My children and grandchildren will probably scoff at me and say, "What the hell were you doing 50 years ago, 100 years ago, eating animal products? Killing sentient life."
Yeah. What's more important to you? What do you value higher, an animal's life or taste pleasure, sensory pleasure?
An animal's life.
Yeah. I mean, say as an individual, if you were to stop buying the products, would you survive and be healthy?
I could, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm privileged.
Right.
I've got the resources to buy all the stuff I need to not use animals.
Yeah.
But most people do not.
In the West, do you think most people do?
No, a lot of people in the West do not have the resources to do that.
And in terms of buying like rice and beans and lentils.
But you know what? I want to go hang out.
Okay,
with
no
people.
problem at all.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
So thank you for the conversation anyway.
That's all. Cool. Take care.
Thank you, mate. I'll leave it there because I want to keep you the whole time. But I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much.
Really eye-opening, sir.
Oh, thank you very much for saying that.
Think about that a lot now.
I'll give you a card then, if I can find one. I have some cards with me, I believe. I appreciate I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm kind of like hijacking a different protest.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's a good opportunity to talk about this issue as well. Sorry, give me a minute. I have so much stuff with me. You're recording me looking. That's kind of embarrassing. I got them.